Ladies and gentlemen, Pere.
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy.
Kia ora, Pat. How are we doing this fine Thursday evening?
Good. Before anyone says it in the chat, because it'll come up, what T-shirt have you got on tonight? Because, you know, you're a fashion icon. What are you wearing?
Oh, yes. Well, I had the Pepper Raccoon T-shirt I got for Christmas.
Yeah.
Which has lots of fun little references to dairies.
Right.
And like lots of fake little, absolutely not trademark infringing products on it.
Cool.
Love her work. So if you're not familiar with it, Pepper Raccoon on the internet, she's got great stuff.
A big old show tonight. After, I don't know if you saw what I put out about last night's show, Chewy, on Blue Sky. But for people who didn't see the show last night, let me give you in one picture or one short video what speaking to Dr. Gary Pienda was like last night. It was a bit like this. This is Gary Pienda last night talking about the health system. Strike down you with furious anger. And it was a righteous conversation, and me and Chewy at the end of the show, once we turned it off, we went,
what happened?
Didn't really feel like we needed to ask a question there, right? But in a good way, like we just let Gary go. It was fantastic. And the feedback from it today, I've had emails from people. A bunch of people did their submissions and carbon copied us in, Chewy, if you haven't looked in the Big Hero News Gmail yet. Submissions is the wrong word because it's not official, but emails to the leaders. So thank you for those guys, acknowledging you who have carbon copied us in. A message from someone today saying she'd watched it and was crying. And I think that actually on one of the parts of the conversation, you saw Gary choke up as well. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's really shit to have that conversation. But the way that Gary had it last night was just must see, must listen to, and must be put in the hands of every politician. Tag every politician into a feed somewhere. It's on Twitter. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. In fact, it's gone pretty gangbusters on Facebook. It's a lot of views on Facebook.
There are little bite-sized clips that you can share.
Yep, I've got those. I've got a bunch of those that I've put out. If you follow me on Twitter.
And then there is the entire near 50 minutes of fire and brimstone on high.
Yep.
If you're familiar with the movie Saving Private Ryan, Gary Pienda's in one of the bunkers.
I made a bunch of clips today, maybe about 6 or 7 of them. I'm going to turn them into TikToks as well, so they're in HD and they're going to be in portrait portrait, not landscape. And there's about those 6 or 7 clips are also coming out on my Twitter between now and Sunday, and I'll put them up on YouTube as well. So there's lots of content going out that we often talk about what we do here. One of the things we do here is we provide you guys information and we provide you guys resources that you can then use. And Gary's conversation last night is one of those. I think it's been shared more than almost any other clip we've had on Facebook. And I only put it up at about 4 o'clock. So it's like people want to see it. And it's had a lot of shares. Both the show last night had a lot of shares, and then the hour-long interview we did with them has had a lot of shares. So, yeah, it seems to be in the Facebook rounds more than other places, but there you go. Happens sometimes.
Speaking of just the fucking truly excellent work that we do at BHN, just top-tier stuff, you know. We're award-winning and award-nominated, Pat. I think that bears,
of course.
Sometimes, because we're nimble and we're agile, and we start hitting things quickly. More stuff comes out. Now we spoke about the 2x2 cult.
On the Herald.
Today's Herald. Boom! Christchurch upskirt teacher Douglas Martin was an elder in the 2x2's religious sect under investigation by the FBI for sexual abuse. This is in the same town that our rogue national
So
MP,
there's no way he doesn't at least know him. Again, want to make it really clear, no accusations being made against Hamish Campbell whatsoever. Not just because we're being legally careful as well. There are none. No one's made any. There's none to be made. But I have a family connection that is a bit different from I know people who have been charged with crimes. They're two very different statements. Also, and I don't know if this is in the story or been released yet, but it's pretty certain by some in the ex community, and I can't say who and what and where, that actually technically he is an elder in the church as well. So it's more than just more.
Yeah.
He
is an elder.
Yeah.
Who hosts meetings in his house.
Yeah.
His dad is an elder that
Yeah.
hosts meetings in his house.
Yeah.
This guy is an elder in the same city.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he hasn't done anything. Probably hasn't done anything even. But he certainly knows people that have.
Well, hang on. When you say probably hasn't done anything, I don't even want to go near that. There is no evidence anywhere by anyone, any accusations towards to Hamish Campbell. So we're not even going to say probably hasn't done anything. There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing. No, we're not, because we're just not going to play. We're not going to play the game that the right played around Benjamin Doyle and connect all these dots and come up with a conclusion. We're not going to do it. That's
very fair, and I withdraw and apologize.
Like your father should have. Oh, I don't say that to you, do I? That's to the baddies. I say that to the baddies.
But I would also say the more that this stuff comes out, I keep reflecting to when it was brought up by the media with him. Again, that would have been an excellent opportunity to go, I know there's some shady shit happening in the organization that I'm part of it, and I absolutely deplore it, and these horrible fucking people need to go to jail, get the fuck out of my church. He didn't. He tried to distract and minimize. That was his first instinct. So,
Well, I suspect he was taken off guard as well. I emailed him this week and said, we are talking to ex-members of the 2x2s. We'd love to give you an opportunity to respond. Didn't hear back. Didn't expect to hear back, but it's a courtesy thing as well. So I would have been keen to talk to him, but he's not the talking, and it'll be interesting to see what media do with it from there. But listen, Chewy, more to get onto. Let's not tangent for the first half hour.
I wanted to get my derailing and my tangent in early, because otherwise they're jammed in right at the end. But no, go ahead, Pat. You make
Douglas Murray, a conversation we were going to have last night that we put on hold because we gave all the time to Gary appropriately. So, and also Kieran McAnulty and Christopher Bishop talking about Simeon Brown. One of the most pissy things this morning that annoyed me with that, it's quite a short clip, but Chris Bishop, perpetuating that same lie that the average salary is $340,000 for a doctor. He said it on the show this morning, and we proved it wrong by using eyes and Googles last night with Gary Panda, and he said it again today. So pretty annoying. Anyway, look, let's just bookshelf all that stuff for a bit, because we want to welcome to the show from Aotearoa Liberation League. It is Pere Huriwai-Seger. Hey man, how are you?
Tēnā kōrua. I'm very well. Thank you for having me on.
I nearly went into like the wrestling introduction.
Oh, I was waiting for. I was like, I'm coming.
Do you smell what Pere is cooking? Is that what you say? I can't remember that.
Off the top rope in the food court.
Oh, you guys are bringing back way too much nostalgia. I was looking at that T-shirt of yours, Chewy. I was like, is there a K-bar on there? I was like, that was definitely my favorite old school dairy treat.
Is.
Hey, there we go. Lovely. Oh, nice. Lovely.
Hey, I was looking at Facebook this morning, and I came across a post that was actually by a certain award-winning Chewbacca. It's an award-winning Chewbacca, but he was talking about something that involved you. From Kiwi Blog. We'll come back to the Kiwi Blog part at the moment, but there's reports coming out that you, quote unquote, confronted Casey Costello. Was it at Wellsford? Was it at the McDonald's in Wellsford? I was just trying to think where.
Yeah, you know the one. Yeah, that
by the petrol station,
connected to the Caltex, across the road from the police station. Yeah, that's the one.
So Casey Costello in Macca's, Pere Huriwai-Seger in Macca's, it says you confronted her, And there's a couple of storylines coming out as well. One is that for a former Te Pāti Māori candidate, this shouldn't be happening. On the post that I saw you put, you went, hang on, I'm not a former Te Pāti Māori candidate. So let's clear that up first of all, and then let's go into the conversation, which is what actually happened. And the second one, which is more sort of a general conversation, is what do we do when we see public figures in their private life? Are they fair game, so to speak? So first of all, yeah, Te Pāti Māori, connection to Te Pāti Māori officially candidate. What is all that, and where's it all come from?
It might be a bit confusing because we complained about the title. So they've already changed the title. So previously it just said Te Pāti Māori candidate. But I contacted the journalists and said, hey, please, can you put former? Because I did run in the 2023 election as a candidate for Te Pāti Māori. And so, it's one of those things, can anyone actually decouple from a party once they have sat as a candidate? Who knows? I'm not really too sure. I'm very interested to see how Eru Kapakingi, the son of Maria Mino Kapakingi, because he said that he's not running. He's just going to be leading the Toitū Te Tiriti movement. I'm not currently a candidate. There have been no communications to be a current candidate for the election. I'm not looking to be a candidate. And I just think it's really lazy journalism. It's just so obvious that they want to smear Te Pāti Māori because it gets clicks, So any opportunity that they can to draw that association, they're going to do it. In my opinion, it's unfair for them to just put that out there because, of course, the flow-on effect is that everyone in the public believes I'm a candidate for Te Pāti Māori. And, for me, in multiple ways, that's problematic because, of course, I want to be promoting my own platform, Aotearoa Liberation League, So, it's about the banner that I'm sitting under. And, of course, for us at Aotearoa Liberation League, I say us, everyone knows it's just me and Samar. I think we're, I like to think that we are a little bit more radical. I'm going to look at Chewy now. That we're a little bit more radical than Te Pāti Māori. So, I think it's healthy for us to have a separation because if, for example, the action that we did at Te Papa, which I think you guys, you were a little unsure about. That took place before I signed on with Te Pāti Māori, and I gave them a heads up about the activation that we were doing at Te Papa, the abseiling and the spray painting for those who don't remember. And they, I guess I shouldn't share what they said about it, but I gave them that information, and then still they were happy to have me as a candidate for that 2023 election. And I had a lot of respect to them for that. A lot of my respect for Te Pāti Māori comes because they still backed us after we, did that highly illegal action at Te Papa. But yeah, not a current candidate. And I think it's the most fair thing for us to do is to, acknowledge that there is no formal connection there because, it just leads to everyone creating that association and it's not helpful.
Yeah. I'm intrigued as well. Okay, so it's not the case, never the case. I kind of feel like you're part of the Catholic family. Like I grew up in the Catholic Church, and no matter what happens, I still get, you're a Catholic, eh? It's like you can't. It's like blood in, blood out with the Catholics. It feels like it might be the same with a political party.
I think they started that, Pat.
Okay, just a second.
I've gone through a few phases in my life, at first I was known as the one wheel guy, the unicycle guy. People from Kaikohe and from Te Tai Tokiro who know that I've got that I'm a 3-time world champion for extreme unicycling. That was a past life me. And then there was Pere the vegan, the anti-dairy vegan militant activist, and that was another previous. I got a lot of respect for you, Pat, as well for that one. Yeah,
we should tell people the story one day, not now, one day.
Yeah, well, funnily, actually, Rachel Stewart, she's also tweeting about us on Twitter at the moment, and she's bringing up Milked as well. But anyway, so I've gone through a few iterations. I've got a few lives to get through. So the Te Pāti Māori Pere will probably stick around for a little bit. And I'm so vocal about my support for them because I just love their policies and I just love what they're doing. They're so staunch. They're so hardcore. And I just think it's exactly what we need, especially for our Māori who are disenfranchised and don't see themselves reflected in the current political system. For me, that's the role of Te Pāti Māori. I would love to see them go mainstream and get that kind of momentum, but I think there's a particular lane for them and a particular purpose for them, and I think they're doing it fantastically at the moment. And I have a lot of passion for that. So I'm definitely going to keep supporting them. Even though I'm trying to distance myself from them, I'm still going to wear their merch. I'm still going to promote them. But I have no formal connection with them. And I think that's a funny thing for people. They can't conceptualize why someone would support something like that and not have some type of financial connection to it. But, I'm an activist. I openly call myself an activist. People are going to keep brushing me with it. And I think that's just something I'm going to have to work through. And that's all good.
So I'm intrigued as well. I don't want to talk about the Hone Harawira thing now, but Hone Harawira, who once talked about white motherfuckers, seems to be a bit more precious today about activism today, about what's been going on. I've been in interviews with Hone where I've said, and he says, I'm not, you can say it. And I said, how you call people white motherfuckers? And he's like, he took it in good stride, but I can ask that. Let's first of all just go what happened. Tell us what happened, because we're getting mixed messages. So you're at Wellsford, across from the cop shop. There's also a public toilet right next to the cop shop there. At the Macca's beside the petrol station. And what happened? Tell us the experience.
Oh, just coming back from Tamaki, had some things to attend to there, and Samah was on a panel there doing a discussion with a bunch of people advocating for social justice, and we're just on our way home. And as you do, I should say, we stopped for the St. Pierre's sushi rather than the Macca's. Even Costello was eating at the St. Pierre's rather than the Macca's. But
we believe you. We believe you. Yeah. As an activist, you could never get caught in McDonald's. That capitalist corporate shit. You can't do that.
I was there protesting.
Definitely sushi.
Yeah. Came across. I actually saw her out of my peripheral vision. I was like, was that Casey Costello? And she was in her white suit, with the puffy hair and the dark eyeshadow. And just turned around. I was like, goodness, that is Casey Costello. And I think simply because we're so outspoken about New Zealand First and what they do, we call them colonizers. Very openly, I believe they are colonizers. And I just thought it's a bit ridiculous if I'm not going to confront her kanohi ki te kanohi, saying all of this stuff essentially behind her back. I didn't have my phone on me, which, it's a naive thing to do, and reflecting on the whole situation, I understand that. It was a naive thing for me to involve myself without having my phone to be able to capture everything so that the full context could be captured and nothing could be misconstrued. So I saw her there. And essentially, I gave it to her, which is the phrase that people are getting upset at. And I think, for me, it's simple. When you're pushing divisive policies, and she's not just a member of New Zealand First, she's a founding member of Hobson's Pledge. And, and to this day, they're supporting the Treaty Principles Bill, which I think we can all agree has been the most divisive bill in recent political history. And Hobson's Pledge is still supporting it to this day. So there's division across the board, not just from her as a MP, but also just in other aspects that she's a part of. And so first thing that I brought up with her was the smoke-free legislation, the rolling back of our targets to reduce the smoking population to 5%, which is would have been amazing, would have saved lives. And they've decided to roll that back. And Casey Costello had a huge part to play in that. It's quite clear that she's been lobbied by the tobacco lobbyists. The sources of her information that she used to justify those rollbacks, where did those sources come from? I'm pretty sure it's still a mystery to this day, but it's safe to say that it's not from a health expert. In fact, the health experts came out against what they were trying to do. And just more context, I think, because I often leave this context out, because for me, I don't feel the need to give it, but I should, because I think maybe I've failed in this regard. That she wasn't alone. She had with her a man. I think he was either a bodyguard or some type of figure, and he stood behind me, and I couldn't see what he was doing, but he was behind me while I was engaging with Costello. I just started talking to her. She started talking about vaping. vaping, and I talked to her about we've got about 4 vape shops in Kaiko here, and they're just terrible. They're a bit of a magnet for, things like ram raids and, of course, the products that we're promoting to our people, of course, simple things like that. So I hate vaping products. And I think the evidence is showing that, vaping is, maybe not as bad, but there are, of course, extreme issues with it as well. Anyway, she figured that I wasn't sympathetic to her arguments. And so she said, hey, buddy, just move on. We're not going to agree. But of course, I've got more things to talk about than just the smoke-free legislation. So I declined her polite invitation for me to leave. And
can we just say, you're saying you talked? Is it like we're talking at this level? Was it raised at all? Was it heated? Could anyone sitting on the outside looking in go, "Oh, geez, that's a bit hot"?
Yeah, and that's maybe something that I have failed to communicate as well, because it was just a conversation. And I think, I did raise my voice to an audible extent for people to be able to understand that I'm talking to Casey Costello right now, MP for New Zealand First, who rolled back our world-leading smoke-free legislation. I would say there was an increase in volume, but I can just say the only bystander that came over and complained about the altercation was someone who complained about Casey Costello. As she stood over me, well, I'll roll it back a little bit. I sat down and I made it clear that I wasn't going anywhere. And I told her, you can't run these divisive policies and not expect to get backlash from the public. You can't expect to not get it. Of course, you're going to get it. And in that moment, she used that wording to justify herself to up the ante. And that's when she stood up, she walked around, she got out of her seat, she walked around the table, and she came and she physically stood over me. I had to adjust my body just to be able to keep eye contact with her.
So you were sitting?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
I thought, and a lot of people have said that that's a, maybe not the best thing to do. But for me, it's less confrontational to be sitting and having a conversation. I think, there is a conversation to be had. She said, "Can you leave me alone?" And for me, it's like, well, hey, you're a politician. And not only that, but it's evidence that you're pushing policies that are going to kill our people. That's in terms of the smoke-free legislation. And,
Sure.
the attacks on Te Tiriti o Waitangi. People are all talking about the Treaty Principles Bill, but New Zealand First is, with their coalition agreement with National, are seeking to review or remove 28 references of Te Tiriti from legislation. And because of previous iterations of that bill, it was previously called the Treaty Principles Deletion Bill. So we know it's not about reviewing it. It's just a full-scale attempt to remove these references from Te Tiriti. So these are all things that I talked to her about. Of course, I did say to her, I am disappointed in you, Casey Costello. I think you should be ashamed. Phrases such as that. But nothing too personal. I didn't say anything about her image or anything like that, or it was all professional, and in terms of how she is applying herself professionally. And yeah, the main thing for me was the standover tactics. If you're uncomfortable in a situation like that, I would expect you to simply just get up and leave. These politicians are on a great salary, and then she's coming into essentially a poor man's food court. And while she's pushing these divisive policies, she thinks that she can get away with just sitting there and to be left in peace. I think that's a bit ridiculous. And I think a lot of us need to appreciate the gravity of the situation and act with the urgency that is required for the current situation. Because these politicians, they make decisions that have real world implications for our people. And it's easy to disengage from politics and to disengage from the harms that policies are causing. But there's that great saying, you may not do politics, but politics will do you. So because these politicians are corrupt, they don't answer questions in the House, they don't answer the media. Casey Costello was not forthcoming with those OIAs in terms of where her sources came from regarding the smoke-free legislation. So they're clearly corrupt. They make it difficult for the public to engage with them. And so my whakaaro around this is, as long as you can do it with respect, you should take every single opportunity that you have to voice your true thoughts to these politicians. And is she going to take in what I said? I don't know, but I think she's going to think again, does she want to be able to come into these places and be loved by the people? Well, then maybe you should change the types of policies that you're pushing through. So, I think people need to understand that she is a nefarious agent in our political system. She's come from an anti-Māori hate group, lobby group, Hobson's Pledge, and then been elevated to number 3 on New Zealand First's list. She's jumped so many other members to be there. So for me, she's clearly just a lobbied shill, and she needs to be called out like many other politicians do. And yeah, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But I think the thing that I might do differently is the way that I worded things in the post that we made. I might have worded a few things differently, but do it again in a heartbeat, and I encourage more to do it as well.
But hand on heart, someone looking from the outside and wouldn't have thought big shouty argument, wouldn't have thought male. I've seen the word bullying in some of the thing, female, none of those kinds of things. So if that is the case, and by the way, she wasn't necessarily, this is just for you from the chat, she wasn't necessarily in a poor man's food market, because if it's eating sushi, that's pretty woke. Remember, sushi's woke food.
Oh yeah.
So, it's only woke. Kids get it.
And then of course,
the expensive sushi place was across the road. She could have gone there. Come on.
Daniel also wants to know if St. Pierre sells cigarettes now. That might have been why she was there, but that's another thought. Okay, so you're basically telling us that you had an interaction with an MP that was, as far as you know, respectful, might have been confrontational, but that's okay. There's a few disagreements, but there was really nothing to it, and it's blown up into a big story. And as I said earlier, one of the parts of this big story I'm intrigued with is Hone Harawira's his response to it. So Hone, and in this article, it references Shane Jones's wife getting assaulted, abused at the airport. And then Hone is quoted as saying, "I'm not the biggest fan of Casey Costello, but I don't like you pushing yourself into a woman's space. And I don't like you telling her she's, quote, gonna get it," Harawira said. Pat yourself on the back if you think that makes you a big man, but don't try that on me or my wife, Harawira wrote. As I said, this is the guy who was the activist of all activists back in the day, not worried too much about the language and stuff, but he's implying that you were maybe a bit more forceful physically than what you've said us. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, and I think, maybe that's my fault in some of the wording of the post we put out. And like I said, my naivety of not ensuring that there was video footage. At the moment, we're going through the process to try and get the CCTV footage from St. Pierre's so that we can help everyone to understand the current situation. I mean, for me, I'm a protester, and I think people know that. And so what are people's, perceptions of what it means to be a protester, right? Shouty on the street, in your face. But I understand, we have to do things strategically. And I think maybe people are thinking that I've just gone in there full guns blazing. Yeah. And so, could have worded things a little bit different in the post that we made. But for me, I don't feel the need to overcompensate in that area. And I know that a lot of people trust that I would have handled it with grace, with mana, with dignity and respect. And that's always how I try to carry myself in those situations. But of course, I was not anticipating this really quite interesting split of opinions. I was not anticipating it at all. And so if I had anticipated it, there are things in the wording of the original post that we did that I could have changed. But, we're just so truthful. We tried to portray the whole situation. I could have left out the quote of me saying, "You're going to get it." You know what I mean? I didn't need to add that into our write-up of what was going on. Because, with people like Hone, for example, I think, and I have a lot of respect for Hone, I'll first say. A lot of respect for Hone. But I will say, we come from a different generation. Domestic violence, and this is a heavy co-pop, but domestic violence has been a huge thing that our people have been attempting to work through. All of us, domestic violence is a huge thing, and I think a lot of us have failed to speak up against not only domestic violence, but the desecration of the feminine, and that's applied to the taiao and to how we treat animals as well. It's applied to everything, and the lack of us speaking up about this desecration of the feminine, I think a lot of us now are starting to maybe, this might not be the right word, but overcompensate a little bit, and are putting her identity as a wahine over the fact that she's an elected official that should be held to account by the public. So again, lots of respect for Hone, but as well, he himself has a bit of a dark history that I know he's wanting to atone for, and he's very remorseful about. And he of course uses very strong language. He's the guy that says, if we disagree, we'll send the boys around and give them a hiding. But of course, I think because of everything that's happened with our wahine and the desecration of their tapu and of their sacred, A lot of our men, a lot of our older tāne are now in a space where they will not go above and beyond to speak up for our wahine, but there's some inconsistencies there.
You're talking about the pendulum swing. Like when it's up one side, then it kind of swings all the way back the other side. You use the word overcompensation before it typically rests in the place down the middle, which is, I don't know, the norm, the fair, the norm, the balanced part of the situation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think it's expected. And so I think he's entitled to his opinion, but as well, he wasn't there. He didn't see what happened. And I think it's just, it's a thing inside of him that he feels he needs to speak up for, but he hasn't got the whole picture. So respect his opinion, but respectfully disagree as well.
I want to have a look at one more aspect of this, which is to do with, speaking to public figures in their private time. I don't know what you call it. Chewy, though, but before we move into that part, is there anything you want to add in or ask?
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts on this. And I guess I think I see some people's discomfort with how this has been reported and the interaction as it's described and that sort of thing. I find the timing really interesting when last week we were talking about the Otago University's report into how the public were interacting with female MPs and the sort of threats that they were getting. I think we want to be really clear here that we can tell the difference between a robust discussion and anonymous threats of rape and murder. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to politicians as well, they're quite happy to use the public as props. Often you'll see them, I love it when they're out at field days with their brand new red bands talking to salt of the earth farmers and stuff like that. They're happy to use the public as props. It gets uncomfortable when the public don't want to be props, and that they might have independent thoughts about what you're doing and that sort of thing. I think this is one of the things in New Zealand that we are, I guess, privileged in a way, that our politicians aren't generally layered behind 16 layers of snipers and bulletproof glass and that sort of thing. And you could genuinely walk up to an MP and either be quite complimentary or, in this case, not. Do you see that there's any sort of parallels with how you approach Casey, whether it's the fact that she's a female MP, or is that not relevant to this discussion?
I think it is relevant because of the report that you've mentioned and the whakapapa that I've given around domestic violence. There is a kōrero to be had there. But again, we're talking about Casey Costello, a founding member of Hobson's Pledge, the number 3 on New Zealand First, one of the most divisive parties in New Zealand, probably the most divisive party in New Zealand politics. ACT, it's like, they're all, I don't know, they're fighting for that top spot. But I think depending on your political leaning and the policies that you support, if we talk about the genocide in Gaza, New Zealand First is one of the worst parties. And so there's a huge amount of gravity to the decisions that they make. And it's no joke. It's no joke the power that these people have. And if they're going to be corrupt and be uncontactable and not be transparent in their dealings, not respond to OIAs, not respond to media, not answer questions in the House, etc., then I think it's absolutely justifiable for any of us at any point of time to jump on an opportunity to speak our mind to these people, because they live in their echo chambers. I don't know what it's really like to exist as one of these types of MPs, but I don't think they often hear the true hearts of the people. And so I think any chance we get, we do really need to do that.
I want to get to another part of the conversation. One, as we kind of said, I think before we came on, which is sort of hilarious, because Kiwi Blog is the place that wrote about this. The headline was, "Imagine if he did this to a left-wing MP." I mean, how many stories do we know about mean, I don't actually want to say it, but you know, Jacinda Ardern being in Coromandel in a dairy and being called the worst possible names too. You know, it's like David Farrar. What are you talking about?
James,
what are you
James
like?
Shaw being assaulted.
Yeah.
in the
What are you talking about? But also on that, this is the post you put up. Aaron Hawkins, who is the former mayor of Dunedin, Green Party member, says this, and this is what I'd love to get everyone's feedback on. Yeah, don't know how I feel about this. I don't think our elected representatives owe us their availability and attention 24/7, regardless of whether we may personally agree with them or not. On the other hand, new MPs need the support of their parties to develop ways of managing these situations. I was a slow learner in that regard, which is how my whole family had to listen to a woman rant about roadside vegetation when we were out playing mini golf. So, I mean, like, I guess these are people we employ. So it's a bit different from like an All Black or a, you know, or Lord or those kinds of people who are in the public eye. These are our employees. What do we think about, you know, they're off the clock. They're not at work versus, and giving them space versus, well, you're making decisions impacting my life 24/7. So how about we can have access to you if you're around 24/7? What do you think? Obviously, we know what you think, Pere, but what's your rationale behind that?
Oh, I think you summed it up pretty well. And, you know, if we look at that article from David Farrar, you know, I mean, let's just stick to the reality, you know, show me a policy from a left wing party like Te Pāti Māori or the Greens that is responsible for increasing deaths in Aotearoa. That doesn't exist. So the implications of the political decisions that are made by parties like New Zealand First, you know, I don't put them in the same tier in terms of respectability. I don't have respect for members of New Zealand First when they're not going to speak out against genocide. Worse than that, instead, they're going to support a bill that is specifically designed to block the Green Party's bill to sanction Israel for war crimes. So I understand to a degree what Aaron is saying, and he's probably received, you know, people coming up to him all, for various things, and I'm sure it's been a difficult time for him, and so I can see why potentially he'd be wanting to discourage this kind of thing. But I would not put Casey Costello in the same tier as other public servants. I just think there's a difference there that we need to acknowledge does warrant different behavior from the public in terms of how we interact with them.
I think there is a conflating here on the right of, hey, you know, you guys are saying that people are getting death threats and rape threats, and you're saying that that's not acceptable. And then they're conflating this with anybody approaching any MP about stuff. Like I know personally in Aaron's experience as a Green mayor of Dunedin, there was a segment of our community down here that were venomous towards him. And he might be talking about that mini golf experience, but I also know that he people knew his home address and that sort of thing, and that was a real concern, and he's spoken about that quite publicly as well. I think there is a line that some people like. I would love to go hammer and tongs on some politicians. In fact, I might have made Lux and flinch once. That's one of my favorite moments. And I tried to stop Simeon Brown car leave the Dunedin Hospital area earlier this year. But I think it's that whole thing of like, you don't involve people's children. You wouldn't do it while someone's family's around or something like that. But on the right, again, we come back to this sort of thing of anonymous death and rape threats. Absolutely fine. Talk of Nuremberg 2.0 and having a hanging list. Absolutely fine. These are not the same interactions that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I know that Aaron would have gotten a lot of shit. He probably for some of the same reasons that I get it. You know, I'm vegan, he's vegetarian. We've got a bit of a whakapapa in there as well. I know what it's like. He knows what it's like. You know, but I should reiterate. But I wanted to reiterate, just, you know, peaceful protest. It's a must. You know, non-violence is a value that we've always advocated for at Aotearoa Liberation League. We're all about non-violent, peaceful disruptions, And I think that's probably one of the things that triggers the right wingers, is that no matter how far you push us, we will never step over that line. And you know, you will never get us for stepping over that line, because our whole mantra is nonviolence and peaceful resistance. And we take inspiration from parihakatanga. You know, in parihaka, it was all about plowing the fields and growing gardens and peacefully, passively resisting colonial domination. And that's where Gandhi was inspired in terms of peaceful, passive resistance. Gandhi got his inspiration from parihaka. And those are one of the staunchest values that we hold on to. And perhaps we need to communicate it more. I, of course, encourage our rangatahi and our young protesters to be strong in their values and advocating for what they believe in. But, you know, there is a line, and we can't be giving ammunition to the other side. And that's something that I will reflect on in terms of this whole scenario. But I think it's brought up some great conversations, you know, around respectability politics, around identity politics, and how all of those types of things play into this, and where we're going as protesters and what is acceptable, where is the line. I think it's great for us to talk about those kinds of things. And yes, if Casey was with her tamariki, absolutely, that is a line for me. Absolutely. Eating at a food court, no, it doesn't cross the line for me. You know, she's more than welcome to get up and remove herself and go elsewhere. You know, she's a well-paid politician. You know, I have to sit down in that food court and look at her face losing my appetite, you know. So no, I don't think that's crossing the line. But there is a line, and as long as we keep it respectful, as long as we keep it non-violent, based in aroha, tika, manakitanga, and pono, then you can never lose.
So, obvious last question. The exact same scenario happens the next time you're driving through Wellsford. Do you, other than having your cell phone with you, do you approach the conversation in exactly the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just been the framing of things, the lack of having that video evidence from the beginning, people having that understanding potentially that I am a protester. Well, that's where the smear comes in with Te Pāti Māori, right? Because there is that understanding that Te Pāti Māori is, you know, savages, you know, they're unhinged, you know, they've tried to create that smear and tar us like that for a really long time. So perhaps I would be more strategic in how I would word things, but the hope would be that things were captured on video. But I mean, we can't always just rely on video, you know. I don't want that limitation for people. We should be speaking our minds regardless. You know, and for me, I felt actually really conflicted when I saw Casey, because I thought to myself, damn, don't have my phone on me. So then again, you know, what's the point, right? You kind of have that feeling when, you know, if it's not going to be on video, it never happened, you know. But I thought that's ridiculous. That's silly. You know, we do need to speak our minds. We need to speak our hearts, and we can't let the idea of, oh, it's not going to be captured for a piece of content get in the way of us confronting our elected officials. So.
And just to wrap up, just to reiterate what Chewy was saying about, does this happen on the left, doesn't happen on the right? This was just last week, wasn't it? Research finds rape threats against female MPs common. And one of the examples is Labour, so people don't know that's on the left. MP Ingrid Leary says the threats and abuse are commonplace. So for old mate to say, imagine if this was happening to a left-wing MP, it's like, dude,
so clueless. That's what just stunned me.
You know, they have a particular demographic that they speak to, and they need to keep reiterating their lies so that their side of the fence can believe in it. And if no one's saying it, then there's never a chance for them to believe their lies. So they just got to keep reiterating it.
Pere, thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you to Samar, who I think is with you, because I can see ALL comments coming up in the chat. It's like this is the Inception version of it. There's chat going on from you guys, and you're here at the same time. Not sure.
I'm doing with my toes. No, I mean, you know, this was one of those rare occasions that me and my wife were not by each other's side, which is hilarious. You know, that something would happen, because we're often just attached at the hip. So, but yeah, if I could just give a little plug for our stream. We try to do a stream every Friday, 6 p.m. So everyone that's here, if you like this type of kōrero come and hang out with us for a Friday evening. We're currently going through storms here in Te Tai Tokiro, and we're running on a generator at the moment. I had to fire up the generator just to be here tonight. So who knows if we'll be there, but we do always try to be there 6 p.m. Friday. If people want to come support us, we'd really appreciate it. Where
do you stream so people know?
Oh, just on YouTube. Because we have low internet, we'd love to stream everywhere. Maybe if we get more, you guys do Patreons, we do Ko-fi. If more people were to support us, then we might be able to increase our bandwidth and stream everywhere. But at the moment, we're just on YouTube, 6 p.m.
I'm just looking up on the, there we go. So we can show people where they should be going. Aotearoa Liberation League, Facebook.com. And it's just Aotearoa Liberation League, and you'll find all the lives sitting in the lives, and there we all are. Beautiful. All right, dude. Hey, be safe up there. I've heard the worst of the weather's gone through. Really appreciate you making this happen, because I know you had to figure out technology even more so tonight. But very much enjoyed the conversation, and just a huge thanks and much love from all of us.
Yeah, no, thank you. Love you guys, hustle. And yeah, someone in the comments said 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah, sometimes we go far too long, but if you enjoy that kind of thing, no mai haramai. And yeah, thank you again, Pat, Chewy, everyone in the comments section watching along, the BHN community. Mihi atu kia koutou. Thanks for having me.
All right, Pere, all the best.
Cheers, mate.
Right, let us get to, unless there's anything you want to say. I was going to get to the chats.
Oh, just a quick thought. I mean, maybe if it was too confronting to do it in a food court, maybe we should make the offer to host a discussion between Pere and Casey, and maybe to sweeten the deal, we could provide sushi for them.
That would,
I was thinking sushi on our show and have a robust discussion, and nobody has to stand over anybody else. How about that?
Here's a very random thought, Fano. Only because you're talking about having people on. This platform has been through several iterations of shows and content. Most of them are on hiatus rather than being completely gone. The reason this is DOC Studios is the podcast that we started here was called the DOC, the Department of Conversation. That's why it's DOC Studios. We did a podcast, which actually started 10 years ago, called Elephant TV. I can't even see it. Oh, there it is there. Elephant TV. Elephant TV was a debate show. It was talking about the elephant in the room, a debate. I want people to think about this and put some comments in there, because there is a fine line between platforming dangerous, hateful speech and having a robust debate with someone. And just because you've mentioned it, Chewy, I was literally thinking yesterday, maybe it's time to fire back up Elephant TV. Maybe it's time to actually, but what that means, Fano, for example, if you know the news about the Supreme Court ruling in the UK today, it could be debates including things like a woman is, or it could be debates, so it could be quite controversial things that might have some views on here that some people don't like, but that's what a debate is, a pro and a con and that kind of thing. It could be to do with, New Zealand, pick an issue. Okay, let's just pick one. Veganism is the way forward, and less people will have a problem with that kind of thing. But once you start getting into politics and debating, allowing a space for what many of us would be considering the counter view, sometimes people don't like that. But I was just thinking about it yesterday, Chewy. So because you brought it up, maybe we should throw it to the punters, and feel free to email us about it. Because look, me and Chewy have been through this before, where we spoke to the quote unquote wrong person, and there was some on the left who really didn't like the idea of us speaking to the wrong person. It was Chantal Baker. But I think, Chewy, you'll agree. And if you're a patron, it's on Patreon. The wrong person.
There's been a couple of times there's been some robust discussion between me and Pat over whether we should talk to someone. Pat had a long form interview with a very, very right wing person from the States, And then we copped a lot of flack from people on the left for talking to Chantal at length. And I think the thing with both of those interviews is it was literally a case of give them enough rope.
Yep.
And they will hang themselves. And Pat is a very good interviewer who likes laying traps.
But the difference, but there's a difference. The difference with a debate, the way I did Elephant TV, I was more a moderator. So I was less likely to ask the hard questions. I was more likely to enable the conversation to happen and have the expert who was on that side ask. I didn't mean I never did it, but it's not me interviewing people. That's the other thing, people. We could always start doing more of that, getting some of those people on and releasing the Wookiee or releasing the Pat. Look, do that as well.
I'm going to speak purely for myself in this case. I would personally have a lot to say if we were delving into, say, a debate around trans issues, because as far as I'm concerned, the argument in that case really boils down to trans people deserve to exist or they don't.
That's a pretty good title. I don't mean good like it sounds good, but that's a pretty good title for a debate. Trans people deserve to exist. But the unfortunate thing is that everyone will say yes to that, but only some people put that into practice. But they think that they'll say yes to that. So, hey, do you want to just go through the super chat? I'm just thinking, people. Yeah, man. I'm just thinking. Go through some of the super chats, and I've got something to show us. Some good news about Craig's podcast this morning. So if you want to get into the podcast, the super chats.
All right, straight out of the gates, Kiwi Burb, Dr. Gary podcast. When? Watch this space. I will not be drawn on any further comment. Oh damn, $50 super chat.
Thanks, Amos.
Big ups for giving Gary the space to explain, guys. Thank you for all you do and are doing. Yay for independent. Lame stream, shame stream media are hopeless. You are working hard. Money towards Pat's new camera. I like that I'm not getting roasted for my camera in that. It's refreshing.
Do you know
thank
what?
you so much for your very generous super chat there.
It got about 1 minute to 9 and I went, oh shit, I haven't changed the battery open. And I went, I'm just going to have to go with it. And it's not playing up tonight. Don't ask me. And now it's going to start playing up because it's Murphy's Law.
Yeah. The danger of mouse. Oh my God, a religious group trying to cover up. There's a first. Yeah. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
There's a song in that.
Kiwi Burb, for Pere, what do you think Costello was smoking? It'd be a heated tobacco product because they're amazing, magical, cure cancer, boost your IQ, the whole thing. Citation needed. Challenging injustice should never depend on who's committing it. Silence, no matter the context, still preserves power. A stick hitting you is still a stick, even if it's pink.
Yeah.
If you put yourself in the public eye, then expect the public to react. Now,
yeah. Well,
yeah, and this is why I wanted to look at the comparisons, because, like, you could flip that and say, well, what did Jacinda expect? What did James Shaw expect? What does Ingrid Leary expect?
But it's also, I don't agree with that as wholeheartedly, because some people who are actors, for example, and they've chosen to put themselves in the public eye, I think that's different from a politician who is making decisions impacting your life. Just because Chris Warner is not the actor you like there used to be a character on Shortland Street, I can't remember his name, way back in the day, who was a convicted rapist on the show, and he'd be walking down Queen Street in Auckland and he'd have kids from the other side of you're a rapist from the other side of the street just shouting it out to him. It's like it can wear a bit. I don't want to say there's allowed to be different rules for different people. It's like we're allowed to, like, if people have children with them, maybe leave them alone. If people are out attending an event and at that event they're in the public and they're supporting her, go for it. So I think nuance is probably the answer. I would struggle to have an absolute.
And that's the real dangerous thing, right? I have been on the same flight as Christopher Luxon and Nicola Willis. was walking behind them on the way to the boarding gate. Now, did I engage at that point? No, I didn't, because I had to share the rest of the flight with them. It'd be weird. But I'm quite happy to yell at Christopher Luxon in an official capacity. I'm quite happy to yell at Simeon Brown in an official capacity. If I had an experience like Pere, where I saw one of these MPs in a more social setting, like getting lunch at food court, yes, I would say something. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't threaten. I'd make sure they came correct with facts and I could hold a conversation. But this, again, there is a contrast, a very clear contrast, that this Otago study that was released a couple of weeks ago shows that there is a very, very strong difference. I want our politicians to be accessible. I want them to be exposed to the public. But if people go too hard, if they don't understand the nuance on it, if they cross these lines, then we won't have the access that we do here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sort of following on with that thought here from Matthew, right cause, wrong time and place. Twice asked to leave and you didn't. You created the confrontation. Anyone should be okay to get a fucking Big Mac in peace. This shouldn't be promoted. Will end in tears. I agree with about half of that. But
I agree with about half of that about half the time. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, and look, there's no hard and fast rules. Like, I get the motivation that Pere had, and having followed his content and the way, the things that he does and the way that he does them, I believe his description of what happened. So yeah,
me too.
Mr. Arvid says they can clock out. I can't clock out of life. You can. We don't want you to.
No.
I took it to the dark place. Sorry, Pat. He follows up with Tautoko, the Kaupapa, Aotearoa Liberation League. A love heart emoji. $10 super chat from Dreadnoughts. Kia ora, Pere.
Kia ora.
Korero and Kai. So
right.
Yeah, when you distill it down to that, it's not a confrontation. It's Korero and Kai.
In some late breaking news, I've just had a message from Mr. Craig Rennie, who says, Pat, today we were in the top 10 news shows on Apple in New Zealand. We beat The Detail today. So Craig's show was released today, Locked Out with Craig Rennie, and he sent me the screenshot. Top shows for today, first episode, number 9 in the country, ahead of The Detail. Now, I've told you this before. I don't know what they got this year, but there have been years gone past where The Detail has got an $800,000 of public money, of funding to make their product. $800,000. And if you don't believe me, just go to NZ On Air and have a look at decisions made and look up The Detail. It's all in black and white. And Craig bet them today on the first episode. That's pretty cool. Nice. That's pretty cool. Well done, Craig. All right. We've got other things to talk about now. What are some of the other things? I'm just having a look. Okay, let's do this. Now, you guys all know about the merch shop. And I just wanted to remind you, because we're doing this merch, this rainbow buffer merch, as a 2-week only. We don't have the capacity to hold all the stock to make this a permanent in the shop, but we had lots of people requesting that we bring back the buffer gear for a period of time, which we're doing. Now, today is Thursday, and I'm ordering from our supplier of hoodies and t-shirts tomorrow. So if you want to receive buffer gear, that is hoodies or t-shirts, then you need to order them tonight on bhnshop.nz. If you're also one of the people, and there's several of you, that have asked for a shirt or a hoodie that's in a bigger size to what we normally have, I will probably email you tomorrow morning, because I'll order them at, like, if someone wants a 5XL and we don't stock 5XL, or someone wants an XS, extra smalls do exist, and we don't have XS, we can order them in that lot. So if you've emailed me something in the last few weeks about looking for something, the new order will be going in next week, primarily for the buffer gear, the rainbow buffer gear, but for you other people as well. So that's just got to be in, let's say, by lunchtime tomorrow, bhnshop.nz, if you want to get buffer gear in particular. And I know I haven't got to the stickers yet. We lost that whole day with the internet yesterday. I feel like I haven't caught up from that yet. I will upload all the new stickers and stuff will be uploaded over Easter weekend. So when we see you again on Tuesday, we'll make sure it's up and running. Right. Hey, let's have a look at
Pat, sorry, just very quick introduction from co-host here. There's a good question that I think you could briefly touch on here.
Okay.
Why can't BHN get New Zealand on air funding?
Well, interesting question. The main reason is there is a stipulation for NZ on air funding that the project that you are working on needs to be assigned to a mainstream media company. Now, the reason they do that is because obviously they want to make sure that the public money gets the best bang for their buck. So they think, well, if we give it to TVNZ, obviously that's going to have a lot of eyes. If we give it to something that's on News Talk ZB, that's going to get a lot of ears. If we give it to something that's with Stuff, that could be on 3 News and also a lot of viewers on stuff.co.nz. The model is broken because there are some people, like, for example, the perfect example is when Spin-Off did their TV show. By the end, and they got $750,000 or something for that. And they were on 3, and it used to go straight after 7 days. So it was a brilliant introduction. It got good numbers for the first 1 or 2 episodes, and then it just fell off a cliff. And by the end of that season, it was on at about 11:30 at night, and it was getting less than 4,000 people per episode. We get more than that on this, but because we're on YouTube and other platforms, we don't get a look at. In saying that, I have spoken to them a few times, and I have always said to them, when you are ready for a test case, because they need to get out of that model. I should probably actually follow it up because I haven't talked to them for probably 18 months. I said, when you are ready to get out of it, come and see us. Like, we'll test it for you. And I don't mean like hey, give us some cash, we'll test it for you. I mean, like, they need to get out of that model. But now, here's something that I haven't said publicly, but I mean, you should know. We are officially a part of the Press Council now. Press Council? Whatever it is, Media Council.
That means I get one of those cool hats with the press pass and the headband, and I'm like, what about the serial killer?
So we're a part of them now, and I wondered just the other day if that makes any difference for NZ on air funding. But the rules up until now have basically been if you're not part of that's why the Detail, for example, the Detail only got funding because it's a newsroom product, but they also play it on RNZ. So because they play it on RNZ, the newsroom's eligible for funding for it. That's how they've kind of done it. So that's the answer. Sorry, but if I'm going to be fair, that was the answer up until about 18 months ago. I don't know if that's still in place today, but that's what it always has been. There we go.
I thought you'd like that question. You may continue with the show.
Talking bollocks and all that kind of stuff is always a bit of fun. So I'm going to show to you a bit of frottage from the Joe Rogan experience. People probably know who Douglas Murray is. He is a professional agitator. He is an arrogant piece of shit. He is the most patronizing person in the world. And this clip of him talking to comedian Dave Smith about Israel and Palestine has been going around the internet for the past wee while. And I could play you lots of clips from this. He did not come out of this looking very good, but this part in particular, he's talking to Dave Smith about not having been to the place that he's talking about, the crossings, the places between Israel and Gaza. And he is the most patronizing man in the world. And he actually says, I don't comment on countries unless I've visited them. So let me give you let me give you this part to start with. It's only maybe 2 minutes of this backwards and forwards between him and Dave Smith about what you need to do before you're allowed to talk to anything.
No, there was not starvation in Gaza after 2005. No, there was no deficit of goods coming in. I did
talk about a Zionist piece of shit. I did say that, so I gave you a heads up.
Plenty of
There was
times.
no deficit?
No, there are
no
plenty
goods were kept out.
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? I've never been to. Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you
Well,
can.
right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so I
if
don't
you're
know
going to
what
spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
All right.
One of the ironies in this, of course, is Douglas Murray has probably never been to any of the settlements in Gaza, for example. He's been to the Israeli side of things, into the crossings, but he's never been into Gaza. Do you think he talks a lot about Gaza? I think he probably does. It's just a little irony to pick up out of that.
I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an expert,
Well, you have to go and touch the ground. To
no,
be
I
able
think
talk
you have
about
to
it?
see. I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you
okay.
spend a career talking about something. Yes. I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country, even in passing, unless I've at least been there.
Okay.
It's a
But
Not even in passing, Chewy. Not even like as a casual comment, unless he's been there.
sort
That's
of
not
normal. It's a normal thing to do. You're talking about. Hang on. You're talking about crossing points, and not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. Again, I
How
think this is
can
a
you-
non-argument.
Hang
I
on,
don't
no,
understand.
No, it's not a non-argument.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a non-argument if you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, about the provisions going into Gaza or not, if you've never seen any of this going on.
I'm is it called belaboring the point? I'm making sure everyone's clear on why he is so assured in himself of having to go to an area before I show you the hypocrisy.
So you're not
That's
allowed to
amazing
speak
to
about
me.
things that you've read about. You can only speak about things that you've seen with your own eyes.
You can talk about what you want,
Uh-huh.
as you're proving, but that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit, whilst developing all of these views about it.
God,
I mean,
that
now I
accent's not doing
slightly
him any
get an
favours, is
idea of
it?
where you're coming from. You've
Yeah.
read about this
You've never
blockade.
been. It's the bean.
Oh,
word.
but you simply
That what it is, I
must.
imagine you've read all the people who say that Gaza was a concentration camp, and you probably think that too.
There you go. So that's setup one for the conversation. What then happened is a group called Good Morning Liberty decided to set up an argument between Douglas Murray and Douglas Murray, when he was very clear to make the point that you don't need to go to a space, or you don't need to experience something to be able to talk about it. So Douglas Murray is about to debunk Douglas Murray, and it's beautiful.
Have you been to the crossing points? I really resent that form of argumentation. When were you last there at all?
Sure.
I really resent it. You should at least do the courtesy of visiting it. This is not an attractive invitation. I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you
Okay.
spend a career talking about something. I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want, and no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible. I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country, even in passing, unless I've at least been there. If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says, because hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region. Okay. It's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves. If you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, if you've never seen any of this going on. I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did. But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit, whilst developing all of these views about it. This idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct. should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region. So there's an irony to this, but let's skate over the irony.
There you go. Douglas Murray debunks Douglas Murray. There's a couple more things I want to play to you. I know there's not necessarily a lot of talking between me and you on this, but whilst I queue up the next one, do you want to respond to any of it so far? And look, he's a revolting Zionist who just disproved himself that when it suits him, lived experience is the most important thing, and then when it doesn't, it's not important at all. But Chewy, it's also a good argument that the right uses a lot.
I have not heard an accent that sounds like an admiral's moustache, a pipe, a monocle, and a pith helmet as much as that man's voice. Oh, you haven't shot a tiger in the Serengeti? Oh, you simply must, my dear boy. Dave
Smith then went on Breaking Points with Crystal and Saga. And Breaking Points. I said Crystal Points? Breaking Points. And one of the things he says was it was very obvious that Douglas Murray wasn't there for a debate. He was there to promote his book, and that was about all. So let's have a couple of minutes of, this is Dave Smith, right? That's the comedian who was in the room talking to Saga. And remember, Saga's the conservative right-wing guy, and Crystal is the progressive left-wing part of the show. But, the thing that I will give to Saga, and it's not much, but the thing I will give is he plays an even hand. Like he'll call bullshit when he sees it. So let's have a listen to the chance to have Dave Smith reflecting on what he just saw.
I mean, what's it like, on the other side of nearly 3 hours of this and now seeing some of this past lived experience argumentation from him?
Well, I wish that guy was there at the debate. He did a better job than I did. It's funny.
He's talking about the response that Douglas Murray gave to himself.
So once I saw this, it's because I brought up, my first thing was like, you never been to Nazi Germany, but you can still have an opinion about that. And then I was like, oh, he made the same point. He made it better than me. Yeah, yeah, exactly. A lot of people have written about it and explained it better than people who actually lived through it. I mean, look, it's the expert thing and the have you ever been to the region. Like, as I said on the show, these are just non-arguments. Like, objectively speaking, you don't win points in a debate for saying this. Like, if you were to take the most generous interpretation of his point there, and which, and it's not just the obvious logical fallacy that it is, like an appeal to authority, but if you were to take the most generous interpretation would be like, okay, it's important to know what you're talking about. And you can gain insights into something by traveling there and seeing it firsthand. Now, I wouldn't disagree with either of those claims, but the point is that then you got to demonstrate that. Like, okay, if you have a level of expertise that I don't have, and you have insights because you've been there that I don't have, then okay, let's have the debate. And that should show, I said the other day, it was kind of like, it was almost like if you're like a fighter, like you're a UFC fighter or something, and so you agree to fight someone else. And you're like at Madison Square Garden, the fight, you get introduced, you're about to fight. And like, I put up my hands, like, okay, let's fight. And then the other guy puts his hands down and goes, I'm such a better fighter than you. I'm just so much better at fighting.
You're not even really a fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even count as a fighter.
It's your shtick fighting.
But it's like, so come show me, And then it's just all these, like, it became clear when I was there that Douglas Murray came to do anything but debate me.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I was like, oh, we're going to debate Ukraine and Israel. And then it was like, oh, that's the opposite. And,
there you go. That's what I was going to show you from there. There's one other thing I wanted to show you, which I've shown once before, Chewy, but it's to do with, and I will say the right again, when the right outs themselves over and over again. It's a brilliant clip with Milo Yiannopoulos on Tim Pool when he explains why right-wing podcasts get so much success so quickly. They just give it all away. Any thoughts so far, Chewy?
No, but I'm happy to see Milo and Tim Pool fucking circle jerk themselves into oblivion.
Well, this doesn't exist anymore. It got taken down off Tim Pool's channel. That's why we're going to have to watch it, thanks to Sam and Emma at the Majority Report. But it's just becomes so obvious that they're not genuine or honest actors You know, Douglas Murray will play personal experience as the most important thing until it's not, and then he'll play it's not. You know, Milo Yiannopoulos comes on, and he's kind of yesterday's news, comes on Tim Pool's show and outs how the right get to the top of the podcast charts and the biggest places. And there's some really interesting stuff happening in America at the moment with Ben Shapiro's company going broke as broke can be, because they've gone past the initial setup fee. So this is Milo. He's I've got no time for him genuinely, but when the broken watch is right twice a day, when they reveal things that should be the secret things from the right, we have to have a look.
It is no secret that a lot of bad money has gone to people on the right and on the center right, but it's typically the case that right-wing people will go and get investors rather than do advertisers, fake it till they make it, and then they'll get, sort of the big ticket advertisers. So the way Ben Shapiro, the way Candace get famous is they get Wilkes Brothers, or they get some other kind of billionaire money, and they buy engagement, they buy followers, and they sort of propel themselves to the top of the heap, and then fake it till they make it, and then eventually it's kind of sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? Everybody does that. Everybody does not do that. Well, we've just never done anything like everybody that. Does not do that.
There's a bit you missed at the end there. That's a terrible phrase, right? Where Tim Pool comes in. Tim Pool comes in and he says, yeah, everybody does that. And then Tim Pool's little bald head obviously was like, hang on, we don't do that. And he doubles back on himself so quickly, we'll play it. Then that's the end of this kind of clip.
Does that. Everybody does not do that. Well, we've just never done anything like that. Everybody does not do that.
We've never done anything like that. So it's the outing of how the right operate. And just have a think about a particular podcast or broadcasting situation, and it's the exact model that was followed. $2 million injection, and yeah, they got engagement and they got numbers and that kind of stuff. And now I even heard yesterday, day before, on that very same platform, the editor-in-chief of the Pancake saying we're now just breaking even after 3 years, but they can't expand because they're only just making enough to survive. They didn't need to worry about that for the first 3 years because they could, as Milo said, fake it till they make it. And as Milo said, got not a billionaire, I don't think they're billionaires, whatever, to invest millions of dollars into a product so they could stick around long enough to pretend that they're the biggest thing since sliced bread, Chewy.
And it's all built on a rickety, backwards L-shaped desk.
Yeah,
I will still not forgive them for having that much money and rolling with a desk facing the wrong way. It's disingenuous. It shows lack of respect for this audience.
And what's happening?
The contrast is great, right? Because yes, that model is repeated time and time and time and time again. It fucking works, and that's because there is money on the right. There is not numbers on the right.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Although, we watch Duncan Garner take a hard turn to the right, and if you look at his YouTube clips now, they're often 5 figures. So I'm not sure if that's quite there. There's something about the algorithm that picks up that hate and horrible stuff. So the other thing is, even though that Milo was revealing how it actually was working, I'm just trying to have a look. What's the network that Ben Shapiro's on? It's starting to fail. So it's starting to fail because what's happening in America at the moment with some of the bigger conservative groups. Remember, Ben Shapiro's company offered Steven Crowder $50 million to come and broadcast on their platform.
Tim Pool's a perfect example.
Daily
that
Wire.
Quest for money.
But what I'm saying is it's failing. It's starting to fail. So now what's happening is the Daily Wire is failing and hemorrhaging money and losing people. And people like Candace Owens, who have said, fuck you guys, I'm out of here, or she's been kicked out, is actually doing really well. Because when I say really well, I mean like financially, because it's one person, it's a small nut, she's looking after herself and maybe an editor sort of thing, and is moving back away from these big monoliths like the Daily Wire became and moving back into independence. And in America, what you're seeing is the monoliths, the big Daily Wire, starting to fall over, and they will fall over. Then it will go back to individualism, which might not change the model. So rather than billionaires putting into the Daily Wire, they'll put into a particular single, entity. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting to watch. It just also makes me so grateful for what you guys who are watching have done here and built this community, because this really has been the grassroots up. We have started with nothing and built, and now we've got like double nothing. I don't know what it is, but we have a small nut.
I speak for yourself. I got two great big ones. Look, our choice to do this grassroots and not go cap in hand to someone with a big pot of money. I mean, look, this our position on certain issues has certainly not put us in touch with outreach programs from the Russian government either, which is Tim Pool's whole bag. So yeah, I mean, watch this space. Maybe there'll be signs as we do a massive rebrand and a pivot to the hard right.
When are you getting that?
Could you imagine?
When is that Polestar turning up to your house? Have you ordered it yet?
Not yet.
I nearly ordered a Polestar as our. Hey, listen. Well, if we turn up to Auckland for the awards, and we had got into a Polestar, how would you have felt?
Oh, I love that car. It's so pretty.
I could have hired one, but I decided not to, because it's quite hard doing the EV thing when you got to refill it up and take it back rather than just filling up with gas. But I thought about it. I looked at one.
Pat, I think we're far enough away from doing this that our audience will forget. April 1st next year, we should do a right-wing outrage stream.
Like Stephen Colbert used to do.
We should just do a fucking pivot.
Sounds fun. I'm down. You guys remember it. Right. Let's wrap up for the week. The kids have said they're going to be in tomorrow night for Bright Hairy News. So that's a bit of fun. One clip from this morning's conversation between Chippy and Chris Bishop. And this is like your little bit of dessert before we head out for the night, between Kieran, McAnulty, and Chris Bishop. And they talked a bit about infrastructure. And look, I don't think anyone's against the idea of, health system, health sector infrastructure. But what the conversation turned to interesting when they played Simeon Brown's comments, and then Bishop came in straight away and lied about how much doctors are earning. And then Kieran just puts wee Simeon in his place. Let's check this out.
Australia, 5,000 doctors are due to strike next month due to stalled negotiations. And this was the Health Minister's response.
They should get back around the negotiating table to sort these issues out, rather than delaying the care for thousands of Kiwis who have already been waiting too long. They're well remunerated. They earn on average $343,000 as part of their total
That's a lie.
Package. They have 6 weeks annual leave per year. They get 3 months paid sabbatical every 6 years,
which nobody takes because they can't replace the doctors.
Ultimately, we need to make sure we're putting patients first. Patients should never be used as a bargaining chip in negotiations with unions.
So I want to end the interview here, but I'm going to give both of you the opportunity to respond to that. Is that the right attitude for the minister to take?
Absolutely, I back him 100%. The Doctors Union is asking for a 12% pay rise. I strongly suggest that 99% of people watching this program have not had a 12% pay rise this year or last year, and they're certainly not asking for one. They are extremely well remunerated, around $340,000 on average when you
reiterated the lie.
Take into account all of the different things that they get as well. Again, I strongly suggest 99% of people listening and watching do not earn $340,000.
Yeah, but the question is, Bish, do you think 99% of people listening or watching also want a well-functioning health system? even if you're right, 99% of people aren't earning that. That's not the problem. If you said to 99% of the people watching or listening, like you're suggesting, and you said, would you be okay if we paid these guys $350,000, but then we had a proper functioning health system with no waiting list? I think 99% of people would say, yes, please. So it's not about the money. It's not about the money. And you're trying to turn the public against these doctors by going, they're rich elitists. They just want more, more, more. They don't need it. They've got 1 million weeks holidays a year and they all get butlers, and that's what you're trying to do. And it's not going to work. If you don't believe us, go back to last night's episode and have a look.
A year, and the effect of the strike will be to delay much needed surgeries and care that New Zealanders need. So I encourage them to get
I do wonder about the logistics of that, Joey. How is one 24-hour strike delay anything by more than 24 hours? Unless you're a surgery that was going to happen on that day and you have to now wait several more weeks, right? But the day after the surgery, the day after the strike, they'll still have their surgeries on that day. So I don't know if I buy this argument either. I do acknowledge there could be some delays, but I don't know if he's basically saying everyone's going to have to wait another 3 months because of this one-day strike. That's what it feels like he's saying.
Mate, there's delays now with no strikes.
Mm.
There's delays because the surgeries are falling apart. The operating theatres are falling apart.
Yeah.
There's delays because the equipment isn't safe. There are delays because there's not enough lab techs for testing. What the fuck is he talking about? He's making it sound like these doctors are completely destroying the health system that is running at peak efficiency, that is absolutely wants for nothing. Like, these doctors, are they striking all the time? No. Last time they struck for literally not even a whole day. What was it? 3, maybe 4 hours?
Something like that.
Because they don't want to put their patients in that position. The fact that they're doing a full day this time explains how bad this is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get to the end of this because Kieran's got to come in off the top rope.
On the table and negotiate with the government. We're a reasonable government, but we cannot justify the type of salary increases that they are demanding.
Kieran, what did you think of the minister's tone?
Oh, I've got no time for that guy. So let's put that on the table there. I have absolutely no respect for Simeon Brown. I consider him dishonest and disingenuous, but I don't like that tone. And if you actually talk to the doctors' union, they laughed at that figure. They said it's just fabricated. They don't know how they got to it. The junior specialists, the first-year specialists, are getting paid less than the people they're supervising. So actually we need to take a step back and look at who's being upfront with Kiwis here. Look, of course, there needs to be negotiations between the government and medical staff. We went through the same thing, but we didn't treat our medical staff, which we need, which we can't afford to leave to Australia, who pay more. They shouldn't be treated that disrespectfully.
There you go. Not entirely sure how the audio there got unsynced, but there you got the gist of it. Chewy, wrap up for the week. Any thoughts around that?
I live for Kieran McAnulty just cutting through bullshit.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, have you seen his other comments from today?
No, I have not.
So I haven't done a deep dive into this story. I've only just done a skim of it, but apparently New Zealand First is prepping for a snap election. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is just a contingency thing, but it's come out and Kieran McAnulty's gone, fucking bring it. We're ready.
Yeah, but I mean,
Labour is ready.
We have to say this, right? Because it's fair. If there is a snap election, Bomber called it. Like after 3 months, he said as soon as Winston steps down, he's going to call a snap election. That's what he said. So if that does happen, you know, we're happily steal opinions from people on the best of times, but that one has been out there from Bomber, so let's keep an eye on it.
Snap election won't give you much time to run up to an election, Prime Minister.
Won't give my opponents much time either.
Oh, God, I would love that. I wouldn't put it past Luxo rolling out of a cabinet room drunk if that happened.
Schnapp selection.
One of the greatest things to happen in New Zealand politics.
Kiwi Bird's been watching Friendly Geordies. Friendly Geordies does a very good piece on all of that. And Friendly Geordies basically spends 20 minutes saying how Australia is better than New Zealand, but everything around our elections, when it was called the Schnapp selection and stuff, he's like, you got to give it to them. You got to give it to them Kiwis. Oh, very exciting. All right, team. Is there anything else that we need to get through? Oh, there seems to be quite a few chats up there. Oh, my gosh. Here we go. Gold. Well done on Locked Out. $10 for top 10. Oh, did I say 10? I said it was top 100. No, that wouldn't be as good, would it?
No, that's not as good. It's not as good.
Thank you. Late fee from Jeremy. Thank you for that gold, by the way. Oh, another one from Gold. Congrats on getting that press council credit. That might not be what it's called. I think it's the media council, but it's the credentials. Well, it's not even credentials. It's just agreeing to their conditions. Anyone can get it. But it means that, for example,
No. We're special, Pat. We're special. We're the
means
press
we can
council
now
special boys.
It means we can now go to the lockups for the budget and that kind of stuff. So we're looking at all that kind of stuff. Arvids for $10. Thank you again. To be honest, I've thought about clocking out, but I'm better than that. I believe a better day is possible, and I'm a fighter by nature. You take it there, I'll take it further. More from Arvids. Everyone must go. And another one. Shit, our oily rag. Ollie, I don't know what that reference is to. Do you know, Chewy?
No.
Another one from Arvids. I think Arvids might be drinking. That's why he's don't text and drink, people. Don't drink and text. Remember that group of rich bitches saying that they should pay more tax? Why don't they fund us? Does he mean us as in this whānau? Look, the thing about external funding is it's not all it's cracked up to be, because oh geez, what did I just do? Oh, there. Because you want to approach it like a business, which means you have to give up stuff. So, as an example, Plunkett only owns 25% of the company that runs the platform. The Wright family own the other 75%. And that's what he had to do to get the money. And you know what? I feel like we've worked too hard for all of that, Chewy. I would be very reticent at giving up a big chunk of ownership to someone. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't have a conversation with someone that wanted to support us like that, but 12 months ago I would have jumped at it. But today I'll be like, well, what's in it for us? Why do we need to do this? It would be a different conversation.
Yeah,
today.
well, we're only really beholden to ourselves and our Patreons at this point, and
not really the patrons. We just say we are. Not really, though. Oh, yes? Oh, no, sorry. We had that chat. Yes, we are.
But that's a good place to be, right?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
like the only thing that we owe anything to is our audience.
Yeah,
and we're not hitting that awesome part of the commercial radio world that we both remember so fondly, Pat, of having to do hemorrhoid cream reads every 30 minutes.
And look, the other thing, right? Look what we're starting to do. I mean, working alongside people like Craig Rennie, putting another whole line of content out there that's going to help New Zealand. I've said to you before we launch Craig, there's definitely one more podcast coming. There may be 2 more podcasts coming. And then we've also got these other opportunities, like things that we used to do that we've put on the shelf while we're getting this going, that we might go back to. There's heaps to do, and we love doing it. Danger of Mouse, D. Gardner has only been in love with his own voice. I guess that's Duncan Gardner, D. Gardner. And Arvids again says, GA has a minuscule risk of death, and I've never feared more for my life than thinking my amazing healthcare workers could be overworked. Yeah, someone said earlier as well, I put it up, I don't want there it is there. I'd start it. I don't want my surgery done by someone who's just worked a double shift after working a triple. Yep, that is very, very true. Okay.
Yeah. And like I often talk about my sister, the nurse, the long shifts that those guys do, and then during those shifts they're calculating dosages for medicine and that sort of thing. Like, I don't know about you, I'm real tired. I can barely tie my shoe, let alone work out what dosage of medicine to give them based on body weight or timing or that sort of thing. You get the wrong medicine, you can kill someone. That's why people get paid. They work long hours. They have a lot of responsibility. Compensation is a recognition of what they bring to the table. To sit there and go, a surgical specialist, an actual leader, a senior doctor in a hospital that's responsible for everyone underneath them, is not worthy of that level of compensation. Get fucked.
So eloquent. So easy.
Oh, look, at the rate that Kieran's going, he'll be with me very shortly.
All right, team. So Bright Hearing News is happening tomorrow night, as far as I know. I got a message from Magenta today, I think, saying so. Should I double check that in case I'm wrong? Pretty sure. I'll double check. Hang on.
Hey, Magenta, you up? Emily, you in the chat?
No, I'm just having a look at the...
Are you doing the show tomorrow?
Yeah, there we go. We are good to do the show this Friday. Yeah. So I was right. That's going on this Friday. So you'll be with me tomorrow.
I'm told that they won't be talking about politics. It'll be a cooking stream. They're going to be doing hot cross buns live.
Oh, I bought some tonight. Going to have them tomorrow. Oh, there we go.
See?
I put it up and you took it down. Or other way around. All right, team. And so we are taking Monday night off. And I've said to you that I'll put a best of up. I might not. I probably will. But like, Chewy is my motivation for life. And I'm convincing my wife that tomorrow we're going to have a boneless day. We're going to take all of our bones out and lie on the couch and start the fire and watch movies. And then I'm not going to do any work tomorrow. I've chosen to. And I might do something on Saturday. So I struggle to not do that. So there probably will be a best of from the start of the year so far. Maybe we should put the first episode up, Chewy. The first one we ever did.
Jesus. Watch us hemorrhage viewers. Tomorrow I am driving to Timaru and then on to Christchurch. So I will probably be in the Easter weekend traffic stream, and I will be messaging live on Blue Sky every unhinged Ford Ranger maneuver that I see between here and Christchurch. It'll be a good time.
Just before we head off, there's a hemorrhoid cream donation there.
That's a lot of hemorrhoid cream. That's a lifetime supply.
Really? $20? Tube would be...
I don't know.
I mean, the last time you bought it.
No,
come on. The last time you bought it. The last time you bought it. When you bought it last, how much was it? The last time?
I've never bought hemorrhoid cream.
Oh, Chewy, it's okay. You're amongst friends. The last time, what was it? Like 15, 18 bucks? Oh, Chewy, come on. We need to go. We can get past all of this. We all know it's okay. You're in a safe space. The last time you had to buy something, how much? Come on. It's okay. It's okay.
I don't like this line of questioning.
You're amongst friends.
Okay, look. I'm holding out for the special edition Preparation H that was mentioned on Saturday Night Live the other week.
Okay.
The Flaming Hot Cheetos Preparation H.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah, look, see, Barbara says it's only about 2 weeks with a hemorrhoid cream. You should know that, Joe. So.
I don't know. How much is the banana anyway? $30?
Is that what it's called? A new soul? Is that what it's actually called? That's fantastic. I do know that when, what's the name of the man in black? Burned into a burning ring of fire. Johnny Cash. They tried to buy Burning Ring of Fire. A hemorrhoid cream company tried to buy it after he passed away. Family wouldn't give it up, but that's freaking brilliant.
Imagine that though, going to Johnny Cash's estate and going, "Hey, this song about your dead father's love for your mother, we want to have it about hemorrhoid cream. You in?" That was always going to work.
So we'll catch you live again on Tuesday, Emily and Magenta tomorrow night. Have a really safe weekend. If you're out on those roads, just remember, please, people, that driving 5 k's an hour less will get you to your location literally minutes later, but make you exponentially safer in the road. We want to see all of you again here on Tuesday night. And until then, be safe. Go and eat the chocolate bunnies or whatever you're supposed to do over Easter weekend. I've never quite understood the whole chocolate side of things, but go for it. Have a good time and be well. Hey.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work at what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a war puff to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A in a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what you impact. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. Big hairy news.
All right, Fano, we're off. We're out of here. We'll see you Tuesday night. Emily and Magenta tomorrow night. Be safe, be well. Thank you to everyone for being a part of us. Thanks to Pere from Aotearoa Liberation League for jumping in. Thanks to Casey Costello for being available at McDonald's to have a shouting match with. Thanks to Chewy for putting that terrorist flag up behind him and taking a little bit of the attention away from me. It's been a good time for one and all. Chewy?
No, you've covered everything, Pat. Everything.
Everything. All right, team. Catch you Tuesday. Hooroo!
Cheers, man.